Like to call the meeting to order and document the time of 6:41. And if we could all rise and do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Welcome to our February 12th, 14 edition. We have a focus on learning. I got a couple of items I'd like to add, if I could, to the discussion on,
Community engagement?
Yeah, and the community engagement piece. And Jay, one of the things that we both looked through our notes after we put the agenda together, the Golden Apple discussion.
Right.
I'd like to insert that, as well as discussion based on our board retreat with Burlington and the discussion we had Val had started about having business folks in talking about the graduation expectations and how they fit into the business needs and what we're doing on our end to do that and how we would likely see that to come forward. So if we can add those two items to the discussion. Any other agenda items? Okay. With that, we'll turn it over to our focus on learning.
And I'm going to turn it right over to our technology integrationist, Drew Blanchard, who's going to kick us off.
Hey, Drew.
Drew. Greetings. Greetings. I'm going to sit here at some point. I'm sorry.
Please, no,
I'm gonna turn
please
this light.
do.
Yes, I'm going to mess with your light. So thank you for this opportunity, and I'm going to preface this with a couple of things, saying, one, I'm trying to honor the 20-minute time limit, but I want you to know that we're trying to cram a 10-pound package in a 2-pound bag. It's really amazing what's been happening with our one-to-one initiative at the middle school, and I want to give you a really brief overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to our teachers and our students to give you specific examples of work that's been happening. So I'm incredibly pleased and impressed with the work that our teachers and our students have been doing. It's I set extremely high standards for some of this work, and our teachers and our students have really exceeded those. It's amazing where we've come since just October, because now at this point it's really seeming to be quite natural that students carrying an iPad, they're really carrying their own personalized learning environment with them. And the emphasis now is on school is no longer from 8 to 3. School is no longer just on paper. School is with you all the time. Your access to your documents, your work, your ability to collaborate with your peers and with your teacher, it is there all the time. That's huge. The other thing that we've done that it may not be unique, but it's close to it, sadly. Most of this work was driven by our students. So we'll get into the specifics in a bit. The vision, the plan, the guideline, the rules. The students were deeply immersed in this from the get-go. We did not do this to them, we did this with them. Without them, this would have died a horrible death. It is amazing how smoothly this whole thing has gone. I've compared data to rollouts around the state and around the country. Our rollout and our work and the way things have just smoothly moved along, extremely rare. And it's because the students were so deeply a part of this. And I just need you to understand that, because in a moment we're going to look at some of the work that's now happening with our students. It doesn't look like the school we knew. And I need you to understand that our next challenge is helping people at home understand this. People at home understand when I have a worksheet, I can see it, I know when it's done. If somebody asks, well, is your work done? I could show them the paper, I can check it, and as a parent, I could know that it's done. Work does not look like that anymore. So our next step is to really try to work with people at home and have them understand this is how work looks on an iPad. This is how work looks today. Here's how we get work to and from and collaborate with people at home. That's a real challenge because work does not look anything like schoolwork looked when we were students. And that disconnect can cause some disharmony. Even with that, again, things have been going really well. So, I did take this from another source. I did not create this image, and I love that old school includes a laptop. I think that's hysterical. If you think about what we've changed, and again, this is really since October. You wouldn't know it. If you were to walk down the halls and see what the students are doing, you wouldn't know it's just since October. None of us are app experts. I'm not an app expert, and we're not looking to do that. We're looking to collaborate. But really, I come back to this idea that this is the student's personal learning environment. It is with them all the time. That's so different. And I don't want to get caught up in the apps. I don't want to get caught up in the bright, shiny toy. I don't want to do a demo of how things look, because we want to spend more time showing you students' work. And if you have questions about any of those things and how these things flow and what does that look like, I'm happy to do them at another time, one-on-one, small group, do another presentation. I'm aware that the bigger thing here is to hear from the teachers and to hear from the students. So I'm just gonna preface before I move on. It's gonna be a bit of a whirlwind. We're going to step in and out of the presentation many times as we look at students' work. So I apologize for that. I'm not trying to make you dizzy. And understand that we're not going to ask you to just really deeply look at any one piece of work. Just understand that this is sort of the flow and the trend, and look at some examples from a high altitude. This is what we are doing. Because in 20 minutes, we can't deeply look at any of this. And in 20 minutes, we can't deeply talk about how this has significantly changed the pedagogy in the classroom. That's a whole other 20 minutes. So, with that in mind, I'm just going to set the stage for two of our middle school teachers, Anya and Steve. And I'm going to sit here, sorry, Tori, and do some driving.
Hi, so before I get started, I want to explain why I come to work every day. And that's Caitlin Little, that's Destiny, that's Vijada, and that's Tanmaya. These are 4 of our kids. You should all be proud of them. I'm proud of them every day. So the one-to-one iPad initiative, it fosters student ownership. This is all about their learning. Mr. Wheeler on a regular basis gives these news and notes quizzes on Sunday night, and my goal is to answer them before he's done writing them. And what's interesting is that they're the kind of questions that when I went to school, it would take weeks to answer, and now it takes me 30 seconds. Because the information is all in their backpacks now. And when we set it up with student ownership, it was really important to us that it's their work and it's not ours. And it was important that we listen to them and we help them form this education system that is beneficial to them and helps them move forward in the 21st century.
And the one way we did that was with the student voice. So what that is a document that the students, for the most part, they created it. And it is a document.
Oh, sorry.
It's basically a document where they came up with a set of guidelines for how to be using the iPad, because as hopefully some of you are aware, there aren't really great role models out in the real world about how to incorporate technology into your daily life without being rude. You know, there's an etiquette to it. And so part of that is they were coming up with responsible use guidelines for how to use their iPads responsibly and how to incorporate it within their day.
We'll just make you dizzy again.
And we'll just talk about them. But when you see them, we assembled a representative sample of all of our students. Drew supervised them essentially, and they put them together themselves. And Drew told us this today, that they're the best in the state. I don't know if that's, so this is all of the student work.
And again, this is just about how are you using your iPad, how are you incorporating it, how are you using it responsibly. And so part of that, I'm trying to remember, back to that slideshow. Right, and so the idea behind this was that you then have a mode to do personalized learning, so that you can start making connections, you can dig deeper into something that you're interested in, and you start that venture of personalization in your own learning. So this is an example that I think, Steve, you wanted to explain what that was?
So this is Vijada's work, and this is done completely on her iPad. It's a problem about variables and patterns. It's an algebra problem, is what it really is. And what she's done is she's put it together, and as Drew scrolls down, you'll see that it's, and it's all done on her iPad, and it's really, this is all of her work, and this is, and it's collaborative, and she can work on it at home, and and Ms. Kroll can edit it or comment on it, and it goes back and forth, and it's shared electronically, and it never, it's wireless, it's out in the ether.
And the really cool factor about this, you might have noticed, is that you can make comments on it, save them, you can make changes, and the best part about this is this introduces that idea of reflective learning and being very metacognitive with how you learn, so that you're becoming more conscious of the fact that you are a learner lifelong, and how do you do that process, and what does that take? And I think that's a very different way of learning than we grew up. We grew up with you just have to do it. Who cares why? You just have to. Whereas here it's, there's a reason to do this, and you're in charge of that yourself. You're responsible for that. So we can go on to the next one. So yes, this was what we talked about with the student ownership. And part of this, in terms of the teachers, our job, was we had to make sure we were incorporating a digital citizenship into our teaching with the students. So there's a great resource called Common Sense Media. Some of you parents who might use it to see if a movie is appropriate for your children at home. But it's a great resource that we use to start teaching the idea of what does it mean to be a digital citizen. That idea that anything you do is permanent. It's a permanent record right there on the internet. You can't get rid of it. It's going to affect your ability to get a job, to be able to go to college, because they'll look at that. It's very different again than how we grew up, and I know that's been a change for us to get used to being in that transition generation of, we didn't have that, but we have to look out for them because they have that now, and it's going to be there whether we like it or not. So we talk a lot about cyberbullying, how are you supposed to be a respectful citizen when you're using the internet, appropriate times to use it, the etiquette obviously of using it, and when you turn it off, when not to. And again, it was just getting that ground base, and we use that kind of as a tool so that then we stepped on to the next level, then being able to take it home. Once they could prove that they were a digital citizen, they can now take it home because we are trusting them to be responsible with it and take care of it and maintain it themselves, because it's ultimately theirs. They are taking care of it.
And what was interesting to me is not only did they make the rules for how they can use their iPad, they made the consequences for non-compliance. And what we talked about on our team was that they made the consequences more severe than we would have made them. That there were kids who were like, no, it's not 5, it's 3. And when after 3 plans for 3, misappropriate use of their iPads, parents had to come in, an adult had to come in, and it was really fun to hear Drew talk about how they were people. They just drew the line. Kids drew the line in the sand, and they seem to be really following it, and it's really pretty amazing. Do we have a link, maybe?
Yeah, this is just, it's a
It's just a short,
demonstration
this is
of
just
the idea of a digital footprint. Just an example of what a student might see or create.
Each kid had to make a project, a reflection about why it's important to be a responsible digital citizen before they could take the iPad home.
It goes on, you get the idea.
Right.
But the fact is, part of this process, part of them sort of, and I don't like to use this word, but it's a phrase people understand, earning the right to bring the iPad home, was proving you know the difference between being a responsible digital citizen and being irresponsible and doing things that are potentially dangerous. You now know the difference. So should something inappropriate happen, that was your choice. And you agreed not to do that, and you agreed these are the things that will happen, and you agreed. And it really, that's the phrase we come back to all the time, but you agreed. You have the right to say no. we'll happily give you a netbook. You still have access to the tools you need, but if you want this thing, these are the things you agree to. And it's been really impressive.
So the next one. And obviously, as you can see, I mean, that's just to show some students who are, I mean, at the beginning, you look at it, it is a bright, shiny toy, and that's obviously the draw that students see, but I think we've definitely gone past that phase where you walk around for the most part and they are using it responsibly. I think they've kind of passed that honeymoon period with it, and they're realizing this is an amazing learning device, and I would be a fool to take advantage of that, to not take advantage of that, excuse me. So some of the things that we have to show you is, another example is something that Destiny has put together to showcase some of her learning in math. And there's a great app, it's called Evernote. It's also available on the web, not just on the app sections. So the Real Portfolios is, the amazing thing about this is it's a way to catalog and reflect on. So again, that metacognitive approach where they can look at their learning and we say, this is a proficiency, this is what we want you to be good at, this is the skill you're supposed to develop in this particular class or this particular unit. And then they have to go and prove that they have gained that skill. And by capturing some of their knowledge with pictures, then they can write on it, they can use a voice recording to record their thoughts on it. So if they're feeling like, oh my gosh, it's gonna take forever to write, just record it and I'm gonna listen to it. And it's a way, and this, the nice thing about this is you can't lose this. It's not like one of those big binders that gets chucked in a trunk somewhere and you forget about it and you lose it. This is always online, so it's always available. And they can take paperwork that they've done, so it might have started as paper, and they can capture it with a photo technology with a camera, and then write about it, and then even underline certain sections and say, oh, I wish I'd done it this way, because now I know better. And it's just, again, that idea, you're making progress in your learning, and you can prove it to me. That's your evidence. This is the fact you've learned and you're proficient in that particular skill. So we're hoping to really take advantage of this app a lot more and use it as a portfolio for the students' learning.
Well, again, this started on paper, but it goes from paper, which I've proven can be lost in 2 minutes, to being digital, to then becoming more than that. It becomes, I'm not writing on the paper anymore. I am writing in my portfolio. I'm reflecting on parts of my work.
All of the blue and the red are work that was added after it was in the portfolio. Right. It's you know, so
It was
it's
added through the iPad. And then more than that, as Anya said, so this, and we're not gonna play it for you, but that, embedded in that is an audio recording of the student speaking to the problem and things that were learned by doing the problem. So what started on paper has grown exponentially and gained a lot of functionality.
And so part of this is what's really nice is, Drew and both Steve had alluded to, is because this is obviously related to the internet and it's connected, you have instant access to a lot of information, which already you can start having that personalization of learning because kids can really start digging into something they're interested in without me, the teacher, having to say, wait a minute, I gotta find the resources, and go to the library, let me check it out. They can access it, they have it all right there for them. And so some of the things we've been able to do with that is more problem-based or project-based approaches to learning, which makes it real-world applicable. So it's not just you're doing this worksheet because you have to do it. There's a reason for it. There's a bigger problem you're trying to solve, and these are the steps you can take to solve it. And so we're dabbling in that more now and hoping by next year to really get into that at a much deeper level.
And these are some examples of what we've done. The best part of my week is it's a real fun activity. It takes about 90 seconds. Kids put a 90-second video together on what's the best part of their week. And what we started doing is bringing that home, having them show their parents what the work looks like, because again, as what Drew said, is that the parents don't understand the technology, and the kids are sharing, and the workflow is different, and it's really interesting to see what students think is the best part of their week. And what I really like about the personalized is the iLab. We have a student on my team who is I don't know how to say it, really an advanced student and is very mature and easily gets bored and distracted in the class. And so we presented to the iLab if she could spend a significant part of her time of the day down there trying to do the next 5 years in 4. You know, trying to do 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th in 4 years. And so she's, I think, getting high school credit for this. She's moving forward. And so we had her put together a little video about what her iLab value experience is like.
So there's one piece, we won't get too much into the workflow, it's just, there's many different, as you can imagine with technology, it's growing by leaps and bounds all the times, and just trying to figure out a management system to keep that in order, and how do you get work to students, how do they get it to you? So we've been using Google Drive, we've been using, there's a few different apps that we're using, and it's just, the amazing thing I've noticed is how flexible the students are, because teacher to teacher, we have different preferences for what programs or apps we like to use and what we're comfortable with. And it's, we really try to be consistent so we don't put too much strain on the students, but they're really adaptable. They really know how to go back and forth through different things, and most of the time they end up teaching us and showing us how to do it because they're just much faster at it than we are. And then our last student sample there, we have the Young Writers Project, and I'm actually going to put Caitlin on the spot. I'll let you move around. Just to explain a little bit about what this is, this program, and kind of what you're showing us here.
So, Young Writers Project is a website online that allows students to write and express themselves through writing and creatively. And every week there are 3 prompts that are given to us, and then we can choose whatever one we want and then write about it. And usually the teachers by Sunday look over it, and they give it to us on Monday, and then the following week it's due. So, and if you finish that, you can also just write whatever you want. If you have something on your mind and you just need to write it down, you can write on here. So that's, this is actually one of my pieces on a previous prompt. You had to do something in the spirit of Valentine's Day to write a love letter. So I wrote a story about a sister writing to another sister in college. Yeah, she's illiterate, so a lot of the words are misspelled on purpose, so shouldn't be. And then that one is something we wrote today with Mrs. Shear. She told us a prompt, it crept in slowly, or it slowly crept in, and then we just take it from there. So that is the story that I wrote from that.
One of the things that I find really interesting, to just capitalize on something Anya said, if we ultimately move to proficiency and project-based, then what's clear is the end goal. What is the product you want the student to present you with? How you get there, the tools you use to get there, those are your choice. You have your own personalized learning device, you have your own personalized style. It may be very different from what I would use, but if your end goal meets the requirements, then how you get there is up to you. That's also extremely different, but we're giving them the tool that lets them do that.
And so, well, I don't know when it was, October, November, we went down, when did we go to Boston?
Oh, November.
November, so we went to November, and one of the presentations was 20 mistakes not to make in a one-to-one rollout. And it was by this person who was in charge of the one-to-one rollout in Austin, Texas, who was responsible for giving out 88,000 iPads. And he listed 20 things not to do. And I was really amazed that we did all 20 the right way. And it was really amazing to me. And you know, that they've been doing this for 3 years, and they're still, you know, struggling and moving, you know, a couple of steps forward, a couple of steps back. You can't do it all in one day. From my perspective, our students have done way better than I think that we could have hoped for. It's really quite amazing. The transition has been smooth, and that our planning has paid off. And I want to make sure that I'm clear that it's not been perfect, and that there have been a couple of steps forward, a couple of steps back. We have kids who are struggling with what really is appropriate and what's really not. But on the whole, I think that everyone in the community should be proud of how our kids have handled it. And if you have questions for us or the students, please.
Just one high-level statement from me. If you did everything right all the time, you're gonna take you forever to do it,
Right.
and you're not gonna learn much along the way. That's different, so.
Thank you so much for saying that, 'cause how
Appreciate
many
it.
times we tell our students, it's all about the mistakes, it's all about the mistakes, you gotta celebrate those.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
for
saw a
saying
quote
it.
recently about somebody not doing something wrong. I didn't do it wrong, I just found 200 ways not to do it right.
Right,
Or something,
right.
so. It's,
Well, all the math teachers have a sign in their room that says mistakes start new learning. And that's, you know, and
Or
we
it's
try.
not problem solving till it becomes difficult.
Well, in my room, it says it's not a problem solving until it's a problem.
Yeah.
But that's just because I'm a problem.
So Drew, from one other thing for you then, you started out with an interesting comment that the rollout has far exceeded your expectations, and it was gone a lot smoother than what you had ever would have expected. How does that leave you for where you go from here, and how you set expectations to move forward? As it,
So what it did is teach us, it taught me, it reminded me how important it is to involve the students in this deeply. The process, to really look at it as a process. It's not the specific details, it's how we did it. I'm not speaking to that very well at all. But we actually mimicked that same process to help solve another problem. It started with meeting with the students, you know, small group, large group. I mean, I don't need to go into all of it, but there's a different problem that we're now starting to address using the same process that helped us roll out the iPads so smoothly. And because we have a model that the students, it was very tangible and tactile. And now we're talking about something that's less tangible. But we've seen how this process works. And so that conversation's flowing fairly well. And had we tried to solve this other problem first using the same process, I don't think that would have gone well. So we're using it as a model. What anecdotally I heard from several people, they were quite afraid to do this. This is a lot of money and all the, you know, our demographics and all these things. And I put our trust in our students. And they have really stood up. And not that I expected them not to, but I am so impressed with how they have taken this to heart. And how valuable this has been for them. And we're doing this with them, not at them. And to me, that just makes sense. But it seems to have really resonated with them too.
I think a big kudos to parents as well, and I know you held parent meetings on the weekends, and parents came in and you know, in many different languages that were translated, and we had our liaisons there so that parents really knew what their child was getting, what the expectations were, and I think evidenced by the way that students are responding to it so positively in school is that there's reinforcement going on at home from parents.
There was a lot of, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting somebody off. I'll stop after this. There was a lot of, and I can't tell you how much, this is the part, to say something that surprised me, how much parents trusted us with this. Now, I'm not saying there was, you know, open arms, but so many parents were, I don't understand this, I don't know these things, but I trust you to know how to do this. I trust you and I trust you with my child, first of all, and I'm trusting you to know how to do this with my child. So their trust Again, not without some issues, but wow. I was so proud of our parents for doing that, and for letting us do that, and for being willing to say, I don't understand it, but let's go.
So, this is amazing, first of all, but also I'm wondering, so people are working, you guys are working on your iPads and you're storing stuff on the cloud and your Google Drive or Evernote, and so instead of coming in on Monday and handing you in a sheet and getting it back like the following Monday, you can look at that on Sunday night and look at what I did because it's all up in the cloud and give me comments before I ever show up to school on Monday, and we can talk about what's going on in class on Monday, more or less, right? So does that mean that in order to be successful with this, you have to have internet in your home?
Eventually it would be nice. We can't count on that right now because we don't have 100% internet connections in the homes.
Yeah.
So
How
we
does that,
can't, and that's, we're in that transition phase where we still do some on paper, and I know when I have to, plan something, in the back of my mind, I have to say, okay, so if someone can't take this home, I need to have a paper version available, because that's not fair, they
Right.
can't take it home. It would be nice to say that in a few years, we'd get there, and we can actually count on that, and every single one will take it home, and they have access to it, but I think it's unfair to say that we can 100% say that's happening right now, because it's not.
Yeah.
So we're in the transition of still like straddling paper and technology. So
Sure.
it's messy at times, but I mean, it's the way it goes.
Yep, yep.
And I think that all of the teachers are aware of the, this possible inequity, and we work hard, at trying to manage it and making sure that we do it as fairly as we can.
Yeah, yeah.
But understand that every app has an offline component.
Sure,
So you
sure.
can still work at home, and
Right.
when you have Wi-Fi, it just resyncs.
Right, with it like magically, right? You don't
It
even
really
have to
does.
like,
You
do
don't have to
anything.
do anything.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Right, so it's like you just have to be in a Wi-Fi area and it'll upload all the stuff
Yep.
without you sending, yeah, which is incredible. So, I'm wondering, so in the old school, with the laptop and the books and stuff, and when we were going to school, when I was going to school, there were kids for whom school was pretty easy, and they just sort of got it anyway, and no matter what you did or what kind of teacher they had, they did a good job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was kids who were sort of middle of the road, they did okay, they did fine, maybe weren't outstanding, but like, did all the work. And then there were kids for whom it was a little more challenging all along the way. And I'm wondering if you have found that using the new school and the personalized learning device, which is a great, way better name than an iPad, I'm wondering if you found it easier to sort of reach the folks or the kids who are not like the ones who would have got it no matter what you did. In other words, is there a way to sort of accelerate and improve the learning of the kids who are having a harder time in school to begin with?
Sure. I mean, there's as we said, there's like a honeymoon period where people were very excited and you suddenly had 100% engagement. Everyone's But there will come that time where, for no matter who it is, it also comes down to, and I think that's one of the reasons why we made this one of the high school graduate expectations is persistence.
Yeah.
Is when the going gets tough, because it's going to get tough. It doesn't matter if you're using bright shiny toy or
Yeah,
not.
still algebra.
It's still going to be it's still going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's not about even the device or the tool, it's more the even larger mindset of how you deal with it when it gets tough. And so I feel like some kids, as you said, are really good at playing school.
Yeah,
Like they know how to
right,
do all
right.
that. They have the mindset if this gets tough, I know what to do. But even taking a step, regardless of technology, it's more how do you teach somebody to be persistent? How do you teach them to work through a struggle? I mean, that's what I've been finding is that, yes, I can get some engagement, but at some point, if it gets difficult, some of those kids will still say, you have to,
Yeah.
it's more about teaching, not even the content, it's just mindset.
Yeah.
How do I work through this?
And the iPad, Drew and I were talking about students that we've had in the past who played school poorly, but you knew really, really understood their learning, but had no mechanism to show their learning. And the iPad gives them the opportunity to be creative, to show their understanding in a way that we see that they understand it, as opposed to not being able to write a paper or not being able to do certain things. And I think for those kinds of students, this will be really, really helpful in ways that are truly profound.
We have students here. Do you have
I
questions?
know, I was thinking,
Yeah,
I'd
I
love
mean,
to hear
they're
from
all
you
here.
guys in terms of like how's it changed being in school for you or doing work at home or in the classroom?
You guys can come out
You
with this. Does anybody want to speak to that?
Different, but I personally prefer paper, but this is still, you know, interesting, and I'm not really an Apple product person, but I'm learning a lot from other students, so.
Well, it's pretty cool that you can articulate the whole idea of, like, you do like the paper, and then making that transition to technology is still intriguing enough that you're ready to push through that too.
It's pretty different when you're taking notes in class. There's an app on the iPad called Notability. So if you have a note you want to put in for later to remember something, you can just type it in instead of writing it on a piece of paper. It's like different, not using a pencil, so using a keyboard.
Then
Can you
always
write
know-
it on that note too?
Yes.
Don't you have a stencil you can write it too?
Finger.
Yeah.
You can use your finger or a stylus if you have one.
Stylus, that's
Stylus.
right.
Really annoying.
Do you have any comments?
Well, I like doing it on the app on the iPad because like I find it easier.
Thank you. If you are like bored to write, you can just take a picture of like what teacher gives you the note,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just put in the, like it's easy notability.
Mm-hmm.
You just take a picture and put there. Sharing is a little more different too. So if you're gonna hand in a paper, you can just send an email to them, so to the teacher. So instead of just handing the paper to them, so that's different also.
I definitely get a lot more emails like at 10 o'clock at night from certain students, and I'm like, I need to do these little responses back. But it's really nice because I think some people I've gotten to know them in a very different way because of that, because I'm a little bit more accessible.
So there's less, I left my homework at home.
Or I
I mean,
handed it in,
some of it
trust
was
me.
had to be done on
I
paper,
know.
there's still a little bit of that, but
shared
there's
it with you.
definitely, you can definitely
got lost
toe
in
the
the
line.
Right.
You know, it's much as saying, that's not a good excuse.
It's wonderful to see. the
So
work
what
that's being
grade
done.
levels are you all in?
7,
7?
8,
8?
7.
Was it,
No, I'm just thinking because you implemented it this year, so like knowing the 8th graders, it's really brand new to them.
Yeah.
But like seeing the 6th graders when they're 8th graders to see how well, you know, as long term, like to them it'll be second nature.
Right.
Whereas an 8th grader it's probably a little different. But going into high school it'll be perfect for them, so.
Do you have much coordination with the folks in high school, so as you transition 8 into 9?
I would say that's an area to be improved upon. Like, we have to definitely start looking at that, because I think in the high school they have the laptops, which is different than an iPad, and the way you use it can be different. I mean, you could speak more to that probably than I could, but I know that would have to be, because those aren't really app-based, so there's different ways of showing your work on those, Adanya, versus doing it on an iPad. It's a very different, I almost would have to say, even mentally thinking about how you do work would be different on an iPad versus a computer. So, I mean, in some ways I look at it as, I think it's great actually that they have this opportunity with the iPad and then working with a laptop, because you graduate from high school and this is the way the world works. I mean, these are all the devices that are out there now, and for them to have that fluency of knowing how to use multiple different devices, I think that's just phenomenal. Because I don't think a lot of schools are up to that level yet of even exposing their kids to these different devices. Because whether I like it or not, I'm kind of a Luddite a little bit, I'll admit it. That's what it is. The world is technology now. I mean, we're pushing it that way. So I think to prepare them, it's part of it, the exposure.
have you guys felt it was sort of hard to learn, or did you feel like you sort of picked it up? Because, I mean, that's just the way you are. Because you picked it up, right?
Yeah, it was hard because we didn't start off the year with them, so the transition from just paper to iPad and paper, it was very difficult, but I like she said, the transition was really good. Within a month we were getting the hang of it, so it was impressive.
Sometimes it depends. Like if you're doing a research project, you don't have to come to the library,
Right.
grab a book and look for the book you're looking for. Just type in the person you're looking at or what you're researching, and there it is. There's an article about it and facts. So
Yeah.
it's a little easier, but sometimes you have to. There's some troubles with technology.
Isn't
Yeah.
All part of understanding. So, kind of a rhetorical question, I think, though, but how quickly do we get to the point where we can't find subs to come into the classroom,
Oh.
because we now can't, figure out where the lesson plan is.
It happens
Probably
on
don't.
paper
I think
too.
you'll be
I mean,
surprised.
you
Well,
know,
most of
it's
it's
just-
all online now anyway. I know
Yeah,
anytime I
it's
do a
just-
subplan, it's just shared with at least 3 or 4 or
Yeah.
5 people, so somebody could print it if they needed to. So it's actually helpful that way, because I don't have to come into school at 6 o'clock in the morning to write a subplan if I'm sick. You know, I can just,
Send it.
So,
And on a fairly regular basis, even now, with the students help the adults with the technology because they are better at it than we are, and it's okay. I mean, we'll work at this together.
I mean, there's multiple times where I'll sit there with it and I'll say, okay, somebody tell me how do you do this? And 5 hands are up. I'm like, okay, here you go, show me do it. And they're, I mean, it's, in some ways, I think the nice thing about it is it's leveled that playing field, and it allows them to see that we're still learners too. I mean, you're gonna learn your entire life. And for them to see us get frustrated with it and struggle through it, I think that's a really valuable lesson for them to know that you're figuring it out, and sometimes you can be better at this than I am. So.
And has that changed your perspective as learners of watching the leveling of the playing field? Is that noticeable in your minds of being students?
Yeah, we definitely do a lot of things on our own now, but
Because we just can't help them anymore.
we're really independent these days, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting, definitely.
But it is noticeable
But
in terms of you guys kind of being the experts with technology and being able to run with it. That's pretty cool.
Nice. Any other questions? Well, we thank you greatly for taking your time this evening. We
Yeah,
appreciate it. A lot of exciting stuff. One other thing back to Drew, you made a comment, one comment earlier was if we ever get to proficiency based, I think it's more like when.
Yeah.
It's-
I agree with that,
I think
and
it's definitely heading there.
the question about subs,
Yeah.
when we really are project and proficiency based, subs, teachers, they're facilitators. So the students won't need somebody sort of, wouldn't matter what your skill set is.
Get rid of
as a
our
sub.
jobs, Drew?
Well, no, but, you know, a facilitator as a sub is very different than someone who has to really read and do all these. They don't need to be a technology expert. They need to be
The role
somebody-
shifts.
Right.
The role shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if you will want this projector on?
I don't believe we need it.
What's that?
We don't need a projector.
We don't.
Thank
Very
you.
good,
Thank
thank
you.
you again. Really appreciate it. Alright. So, we'll move into the consent agenda at this point, so I would, give you,
I move we
Thank you.
approve the consent agenda.
Second.
any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. As we move into section 4 here, what I'd like to request is that we'll let LaDanya do the student report, move in with George and Clem to item C, and move B down so we can get these guys. I'm sure you guys have been at it for quite a period today, so if you guys don't mind, I'd like to make that slight adjustment. So LaDanya, with that?
The partner's missing, so I'll have to do this alone. Missing in action. So we'll start off in elementary school. Last Friday, they had their 100,000 star celebration, and the local band A2VT performed a concert, and the kids really enjoyed that. They loved it. They knew the members of the band, and so they felt connected to them in a way, so they loved it. And then on Monday, the UVM's women's soccer team came in. They brought their favorite books from their childhood and they read to the students. To teach them about the importance of reading, and love that as well. And so, back in January, there was the Share-It Day for the iLab. So it was here in the cafeteria. All the students in the iLab put their projects on display, and all the other students got to go into the cafeteria, check out the projects, just to show them what it's like to be in the iLab, give them ideas, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was awesome seeing my friends' projects. So, and then on February 8th, we had the penguin plunge, which was pretty awesome. I think we had 33 plungers representing us in Winooski, and just now we raised $10,000 for the Special Olympics.
That's awesome.
Did you plunge?
No,
Next
You're
year.
one, right?
maybe.
That's,
Take it easy, take it easy.
If we all do
Say
it, will you
that.
do it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many of us did
Put
it?
us on the road now.
Yeah.
I was
My
there.
daughter did.
Did she?
Yeah, she plunged.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, well
Okay.
done.
Yes.
Said, you go, that'll,
Yeah.
that'll stay on shore.
I got some great video of the Winooski team getting in there.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Well
Oh,
done.
good.
Yeah.
It's cold. Heard it was
Yeah.
cold.
It was a beautiful day.
But it was really nice out.
Yeah.
And January 25th, 2 of our students, Rainbow Chen and Ennis Rosevich, went with students from Burlington to Essex for the just to check out what other schools have been doing, other than plain old education stuff like.
Well, that was the joint board
The
retreat,
joint-
yeah,
yeah,
that the
retreat.
board was at.
Slipped my mind. Sorry.
That was
The students, Rainbow and Ennis, they loved it. They thought it was very interesting. It was a very good experience, and I think they'd probably do it again if they were offered. And last Saturday, there was a jazz dinner, which I played in.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was both the high school band and orchestra, and we did pretty good.
Yeah.
And food was great. So
Oh, good.
yeah. And today there is a JV varsity boys game against People, and tomorrow there will be a girls JV's and varsity game against Fairfax, and then Friday the boys also have a game against Lake Region. So
Against who?
Lake Region.
Is the game for the girls home tomorrow or away?
I think it's away.
All right,
That's it.
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving 4C up, George and Clem, you guys want to pull a seat up? Julian, I don't know if you want to slide around the corner. We'll let these guys sit on the end there. We can-
Jen, the game's away.
What?
It's away. The game tomorrow.
Yeah. I thought so, 'cause I think the last one game was yesterday, which they won.
So, greatly appreciate you guys taking some time after probably a busy day. And we've picked up this little piece and hope to do it year to year as we go through time, just to get our voice into you and yours back in through, hopefully, from our perspective. I don't know what would be the easiest way, but I think we had a couple of discussion points on the table. One of them was early childhood. We can start there. Early childhood education coming along. I'm not sure if that's hit.
First of all, let me just mention that on last week, one day, I went over to the Capitol Plaza to lunch because I'm on a commerce committee and it was Young Entrepreneurial Day. So there were a whole group of high school kids and a few college kids, particularly the colleges that have entrepreneurial academic programs. So it's probably 200 young people there having lunch. 26 of them came from Winooski High School. And on top of that, they certainly represented the complexion of Winooski High School in the 26. And it was, I invited the chair of my committee, Bill Bostow from Pownell, to come over and meet them all, because they took up 3 tables, that's how many there were. So Courtney Paquette, of course, was there. She's the teacher of the group, and Mark McQuinn, and another young teacher who I've forgotten his name, I had not met him before, was with them, or he could have been an instructor, so I'm not sure who he was. But Mark was also there as a chaperone. But I think it's indicative of some of the programs that are going on here at Winooski. That 26 represented by far the largest high school group of any high school in Vermont. I mean, there were students there from South Burlington, from Sean's old school and so on, but no one had 26 kids there. And no one had, well, I shouldn't say that. I didn't talk to all the other kids, but these students, as you spoke to them, had a good idea as to why they were there, what they were learning in class, and how they were going to fit all these things together, whether they were interested in creating a business or whether they were interested in using this as a stepping stone to something in college as they went on to college. So they were impressive. was an impressive group. So that was nice to see. You know, Clem's on transportation, I'm on commerce. I gotta tell you, we don't get around to see, education's just down the hall from where I am, it's on a whole different floor than where Clem is. We don't get to see all those people, and I had hoped to meet with one of the education committee members today. It just didn't work out between her schedule and my schedule. I didn't get there. I can tell you this, that from the conversation in the halls and the cafeteria around early childhood education, I think the legislature is, and I think the new Secretary of Education is, although I have not really, I've met her, but I haven't had a chance to talk to her, truly interested in moving early childhood forward to the point that early childhood education is available for every young child in Vermont in one manner or another. So I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think there's any question about the fact that the state will need to continue to provide funding of some sort to help support that, or to support that in some cases. So I would think that there will be funds available to continue whatever work's been going on here in Winooski, and you know, Winooski's been doing early childhood education for a long time, so it will continue. Plus, Winooski also has a very vigorous and vital child care home providers. Well, we have one here, in that serve parents not only in this city but in a wide array of cities. So that I know in my own neighborhood, Clem's neighborhood, we have child care providers up and down the street and around the corner and so on. So that there's any number of them. But that's what I know about early childhood.
Are they registered?
Excuse me?
Are they registered? From my understanding is a lot of the Winooski providers that we have, the ones that do they don't always have a lot of Winooski students,
Right.
and so it'd be awesome to see how we
Yeah.
can really make that more available.
And I don't know the answer to that. My guess is just by the number of students, the number of children they have,
Right.
that they're probably not, because I see them with 4 or 5 students as opposed to more than that. So my guess is that they're not all registered.
So just for like public view, we should decide the early childhood education starts at age 3 roughly, correct?
Yeah.
Is that correct? And then there's a new kick towards birth to 3.
Right.
So hopefully that goes smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be doing better.
So I know Tori and I had a discussion almost 2 years ago, and we were on exactly the polar opposite ends of that discussion. I had no thoughts of, you know, early childhood needs, let that be, pick them up when they come into school. In the last year and a half, complete flip-flop. Just the absolute need to get to some of these kids early. But not only, I think the thing that got to me the most though is that we do reach out and we do grab kids and we do bring them in. But we bring in a lot of the kids that need it the most. One of the things you miss when you do that and not have a broader base is a role model.
Right.
Somebody for these kids to look at as the role model. And if you're really just taking the ones that need the most help, you're not getting that rich mix that you really need in these programs. So I think that's where it's going to benefit the most.
And I think also the capacity for timing, because right now we do have a vigorous program, but it's only half day. So there's a lot of parents that don't have the ability to access that.
Right.
You know, so being able to expand it if the vision manifests itself, and it's wonderful to hear too about the whole fact that the funding to be provided by the state, because again, that will put another necessary burden on, you know,
At least year
school
one.
budgets,
Yeah.
but,
All funding is contingent on all other funding, so you never,
Well-
you never know exactly how that's going to work.
This is a pet peeve of mine. So my theory is kindergarten used to not be mandated, and now it is. And with the way academics are going, if it's important that children need the early education, that it should be mandated and that the public schools should open it up to ensure that we don't have a 50
Right.
student waiting list to get into preschool, that it's automatic if your child lives in the community, they get the option to go to a free preschool, regardless of what it does. And so the school systems in all of Vermont should be able to find a way to make it a public option. And I'm only saying that based on the state's requirements for the academic levels of kindergarten, so forth. So, you know, if they want, so to me, it's very important that, on a state level, that yes, it goes beyond that to the birth, that everyone has that option to bring their children, and that we reach out to people that really need the care for their children and the socialization for the children, but more importantly, that they have the ability, that it's mandated to bring those children into care at 3, so that it's not just ones that need the extra help, but it's all students that get that care.
It is, one of the problems is that, you know, Chittenden County is Chittenden County, and then there's the rest of Vermont.
I agree.
And so, in fact, folks in the legislature typically say to both Club and I that, you know, so you live in that other country. It's very difficult for families. Houses are spread far apart. Some families don't have transportation, so if dad or mom or whoever goes off to work with the car, there's no vehicle there to be able to get the little child where the little child's going to go. There's no public transportation in those areas. So there's that equity question that the legislature's always trying to figure out. And it's expensive. When you add in the idea that you've got to get them there. It's not so expensive if you're just going to provide the program, and parents are going to be able to get them there all the time. And you know, here in Winooski, there's a lot of parents who simply walk their child to wherever it's going to be. And I suspect there may even be some little types that are actually walking themselves to wherever they're going to go at times. So it's different around the state compared to Chittenden County. But I do think there'll be a continued push. I don't think it's going to be, you know, it's not going to be it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be fully funded right off quick. There's going to be a push towards that. It'll take time to get to that point that every child has the equal opportunity to at least a 3 to 5. Below 3, I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I don't know. I think it will
I
happen.
agree with you, George. Like, my feeling is children should not be mandated to go to any public school until they're at least 5,
Yeah.
if not 6, depending. Each child is individualized, and sometimes parents want to keep their children home,
Right.
rightfully so, because once they go to school, it's, you know, they're no longer the primary caregiver.
I don't think it'll ever be, well, I shouldn't say that. In my lifetime.
You never know.
In my lifetime, it's not gonna be mandatory, I don't think. So, that's pretty short compared to the rest of you. There may be a day when it's mandatory, but I don't hear anyone talking about it being mandatory. I hear people talking about opportunity, that the programs are there so that the parents who want it can in fact take advantage of it.
I think one of the important things for us to all understand too is about the Race to the Top grant, you know, which is a significant amount of money, but it's not to fund kids going into early learning programs.
Mhm.
It's to help providers with professional development. It's to set up the STAR system. It's to set up a comprehensive early learning system. It's not about paying for children to go to programs. And it's not even about, as I tried this week, to get some money for renovations and things like that so that you can adapt and actually make space or create more room so that you can, you know, that's one of our challenges right now is space. And so that's not what the Race to the Top monies are for.
So it's for established places to improve those places that already exist.
And it's to develop a comprehensive statewide system so that there's quality and there's quality control of those programs and training and professional development in place for those folks.
And I'm in the process of expanding my care. So I have a waiting list right now, and all Winooski children, and I'm excited to take them in. They all really need to be in care. It's a very long process. it's a very expensive process. So it's good to know that there's funds available for that process, but it's a very hard choice to make as a career.
And early childhood education gets trapped between the agency of education and the agency of human services.
Yes.
So that you get folks on, there's a whole lot of territorial stuff that takes place in Montpelier. And
It's
it's,
just
and so it's, you know, you hear one group talking about one thing and you hear another group talking about another. And it's not just early childhood, it's everything. I mean, it's been a very frustrating morning with people in economic development all talking about the same thing, but none of them had ever talked to each other before. And so then one agency comes in and says, and we have a portal for you, if you're gonna start a business, you can go here and you can find everything. And the other people in the room are all looking around like saying, we never heard of that. And they're all the agencies that were supposed to have heard of that.
Yeah. Well, I guess for me, I hope that that you will advocate, continue to advocate for growth in early childhood opportunities in Winooski particular. We've started to do the data analysis, and as you probably well know, we have about 110 births a year. And right now, we know we're maybe 60 of those 330 kids who aren't in the school system, but are eligible for early learning are.
Right.
So we're trying to track down, if we don't know where they are, where are they? Are they any kind of programming? And do that needs assessment. But my initial findings are that there's a really huge need in Winooski for more opportunities for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds.
But it's such a hard process for someone to give quality care that, it's not just something you can pick up and do. And the quality of care, I'm not going to go into details. I've been through the process, going through the process, and I can tell you right now, it's not a fun process. And if you don't have the patience, the money, or even the credentials, then they're not going to, people in Winooski are not going to open childcares to provide this service because of the loops you have to go through. And I don't know if it's just Winooski or if it's Chittenden County or what exactly it is, but it's a big...
Probably everywhere, but I think if any of you are having problems with any of that stuff, call either Clem or myself, because the one thing you can do as a legislature is open the door or get somebody to call you back when they don't call you back at other times. So that's the one advantage.
It's a bigger process. Like I waited, every permit you get has a length they have to process it.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing. They can send it back, and then they have that length again. So on that 45th day, they can send it back to your person, and then you're waiting again. And meanwhile, there's children waiting to go into a daycare, but they're waiting for whatever reasons that's out of somebody's control,
If you think they're dragging their feet at Montpelier, Waterbury, wherever they're located, give us a call. Because sometimes just a call from us to an agency or a specific manager in a group might move things quicker.
So I'd like to recommend, if we could, to touch a little less deeply a few more topics if we could, because I don't want to cut the discussion.
I knew this was going to happen.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
Sorry.
The other piece we had in here is that the tax rate adder this year, initially 5 and now up to 7.
One of the big adders was the $19 million that was put in the education fund last year, which was one-time money. So right off the bat, when the budget was put together this year, we're in a hole $19 million before looking at anything else in education. There were a few other items I cannot remember offhand, but that was probably the biggest one.
And that was put in last year to cover
Last year.
shortfalls.
Yes.
So when that happens, is it public, is that put out in the public, we're taking this and you are going to have to pay for it next year?
Well,
Or
it's
how does that come across?
It goes through the budget process. It goes through appropriation, and appropriation determines, Ways and Means and appropriation work very close together, and they determine what money's needed, how they're gonna raise it, and it goes to a committee. they discuss it, it's voted out of committee, then it goes to the floor, then if it passes in the House, it goes to the Senate. It starts in the Senate committee, then goes back. So there are hearings and that information's out there. There's nothing done behind closed
Right.
doors.
And that $19 million was actually in the budget from the get-go, as far as the governor presenting his budget. I've forgotten where it came from. It came from some source that there was $19 million sitting there that wasn't gonna be used for the purpose that it was originally established to be used for. So they basically put it in the ed fund. But they've done that almost every year. At one point, it was 40-something million dollars that came from some place that they were able to reach up and grab. My guess is what will happen between now and sometime after town meeting is some of that will get adjusted. The impact may not be quite as great as it's gonna show up. Unfortunately, you're not gonna know that probably by town meeting time. That's tended to happen several times in the past. As it pushes towards the budget bill and gets into May, and all of a sudden somebody says, well, we won't do X, instead we'll put some more money in the ed fund. Or someone says, you know, we'll raise the base per pupil expenditure. So there's any number of things that could happen. What you see now is the worst case scenario and could in fact be what it is, but it also could be different. And I don't know that you're gonna know that. I guess, as most of you have probably read in what I put in the Front Porch Forum, the fact is the education tax rate in Winooski is, the lowest one in the county. It's, even though your expenditures are closer to average, probably, I don't know exactly what they are, but they're probably closer to average. So Winooski benefits from a whole variety of things that are in the Act 60, 68 realm. And it's what it is. You know, you folks have the problem of having to try to find the common ground between what you know the kids need and what you think that taxpayers can afford to pay.
Because
Not an
ultimately
easy-
it
Both
dwarfs-
Clem and I have sat on that side of the table at some point, so we both know how difficult that is.
Right. The 7 cents ultimately tends to dwarf whatever
does.
else we had
Yeah.
worked through, making it look like
Yeah.
we're drunk and disorderly, if you will, on his side. And
But I thought your
that's, to me-
comments, Mike, in the Front Porch Forum were right, not more recent ones, but the one you wrote earlier about the different amounts of money that,
Mhm.
had to be used for X, Y, and Z, and I've forgotten how you broke those out, but, and at least one person that I talked to said, gee, that was really helpful to understand how that all came about.
I spent some time yesterday with the chair of Ways and Means to see if there was any bills floating around that might be coming out of there to help education funding. At this time, there's nothing there, nothing on the wall. The House last year did pass a bill which was more towards going towards the income sensitivity. It died in the Senate. I don't know if it went to committee and died there or if it never got discussed, but it didn't go anyplace. So if we were to see something to come out of Ways and Means, it would probably be income sensitive. And she has no idea if something's gonna come up, if the committee's gonna be given some direction to come up with a new bill. So I don't see any hopes there right now, but as George said, after town meeting, a lot of things start happening and in April.
Okay.
Going back to our students, in December, I got invited to come up to listen to a group of high school kids in Cheryl Bronson's group. invited me up to educate me on secondhand smoke, and they did a real nice job. So I said, well, I'm gonna bring you guys to Montpelier, I'll have you speak to the health committee. Well, come to find out, there's a bill on secondhand smoke. It's in transportation. So I brought him down to Montpelier in January, and brought him into the Senate. They met the lieutenant governor. We tried to catch the governor, couldn't catch him. We brought him upstairs. Well, I introduced him on the floor. And then we went upstairs to the Transportation Committee, and they made their presentation. Did a super job. The response after they left, hearing from, there are 11 of us on the committee, I bet you 5 or 6 of them came up and said, wow, they really put their heart and soul into this, and what a good presentation. So there's another time that we brought our kids to Montpelier, and they've made an impression.
One of the things I think that school boards and city councils and people in Winooski ought to know is, and I think Clem agrees with me, but he can speak for himself. Winooski is reasonably well thought of in the legislature across the board. There's all kinds of people that have sympathy, if you will, in one case, or respect for, or so on. So some of it comes from the fact that there's all kinds of legislators who had a child who lived in Winooski at some time because they went to UVM or they went to St. Mike's. And so you hear, oh yeah, my kid lived at the woolen mill, my kid lived here, my kid lived there, or my kid worked at Sneakers. So you hear that from all kinds of people. So there's this kind of, everyone has a connection to Winooski. Of course, anyone with a French name automatically has connection to Winooski, right? But it's interesting because I don't sense that with other communities. And right now, everyone is, interested in the downtown development. And, how did Winooski pull that off? How could they possibly have ever pulled that off? And you said, well, one reason we pulled it off, I guess, is because we weren't smart enough to know that we shouldn't have been able to pull it off, so therefore it happened. But it's intriguing that that's the case. And right now, with the diversity of the school district, that is of interest to people. And a concern to people in terms of how do we help? How do we provide more resources to both Winooski and Burlington?
If you need help answering that question, let us know.
Well, I was
Yeah, I
just
know.
gonna say,
Yeah.
that's why, it's so important that the budget goes through.
Yeah.
I mean, all we are doing is good things in Winooski and
Right.
the school district, especially with the PLPs coming, personalized learning plans and stuff. It has to be funded somehow.
Right.
And the money, we just have to put it in there to continue the great work that Winooski's been doing. I love our community, so absolutely
We've
love
got
it.
a number of representatives who come in from the Northeast Kingdom into Chittenden County, and there are a few of them. When they come into the county, they always stop in Winooski to eat. They like
Right.
all the restaurants. Well, they'll come back and they'll talk about the restaurant, and they'll say, wow, while we were traveling on the street, we saw the diversity. Until they actually come in and see it. A few years ago, Mark McQuinn brought a group of kids, and we got them into the House Education Committee, and that noon when I went to lunch, they said, we didn't believe you guys about the mix of the school. I said, you had the United Nations in your classroom. And it was an interesting morning because the commissioner was there, and he was talking about how he came into the country without all the support that these kids have. But people who come in here who don't live in the area, when they travel through or they see a group of our kids in Montpelier, they're just amazed at what we're doing here.
So one of the items that came up at our last meeting, and Jay had dug up 5 years ago, our head count from 5 or 6 years ago has dropped about 90 in a pure head count. Equalized student up 80. So our mix hasn't gotten anything but richer.
What's the actual head count by
Just count the eyes and divide by 2.
by elementary?
791.
If it's in
Pre-K. Pre-K to
Pre-K to
12, yeah.
12.
Okay,
About
and what's the
7, 8.
high school population?
240.
Okay, I told them
At
240.
45%
45%.
ELL.
And is that gonna change with, I mean, I watch the news and I see, like, they just pulled out some more refugees. Is that going to change? Are we in for some more new
Well,
Americans?
Joy Donovan, who's chairs the education committee, and I've had conversations several times over the last couple of years about, and Joy's from Burlington, and connected to Winooski in a whole bunch of different ways. You know, there was an opportunity to look at the ELL ratio, and some thought about it needed to get increased. Was a little reluctant, I think, to actually open up that door, because every time you open that door, you never know whether it's going to get increased or going to get decreased in the end. And so the door didn't really get open. At this point, the discussion in the education committee is more around, for lack of a better term, reorganization of public education in Vermont. And so there are those in the legislature who are quite convinced that if you had fewer school districts, or fewer superintendents at least, you could save all this money. Well, the facts don't bear that out, and trying to present the information to them is not always easy, but in the last couple of days, I had the opportunity to speak with both the speaker and the Democratic majority leader, just about that fact. But I think what will happen is something will come out of the legislature that deals with some look at how do you have larger school districts and at the same time have local control over education. And that's a complicated puzzle. And I'm not sure, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know. I mean, that's one of the reasons I was not able to meet with Sarah today, because they had witness after witness after witness after witness coming into the education committee, and I had witness after witness coming into our committee on economic development stuff. But it's, I would not be at all surprised to see something come that said, I think the issue for Winooski in that, and the thing that both Clem and I are well aware of, is that any forced regionalization of Winooski, in fact, will have a negative tax impact for Winooski. Because when you have Winooski at the lower end of the county, being surrounded by school districts, with the exception of Milton and Colchester, but the rest of the ones that are surrounding it, are basically all higher and considerably higher. So you merge the two in some fashion and put it together, then in fact, what's gonna happen, the benefit will accrue to the South Burlingtons, so on and so forth, and Essex, and not to the Miltons, Colchesters, and Winooskis. And so that's why the puzzle is so complicated, and why I don't think it's gonna happen quickly, but I do think there will be a move to try to do something.
What we are dealing with here is far beyond what anybody in the state's dealing with from an educational breadth
Yeah.
Perspective. So I would implore you, and I think you guys can help me here, is we've got a consolidation or boundary study going back to the state here soon, but I guess I would implore you to keep pushing or help push toward the local control, but keeping those differentials for our new Americans and our special ed kids funding, because it definitely is it taxes the system. We do it happily. We've been called a failing state for years, a failing school for years. We'll fail to a standardized test.
Right.
but I don't think you can educate these kids in a very better way, any better way than what we're doing here.
I've
with the
had this
diversity and-
conversation with a number of people
So-
up there about, every time they see we're failing. And I said, how do you expect these kids, these teachers, to instruct these kids in English as a second language?
Third, fourth,
Uh,
sometimes.
And to teach them whatever course study that the teacher's responsible for. I said, it just doesn't all mesh and come together quick.
And at 45% of the high school population, you're gonna get that.
I think it's also important to recognize that within Winooski, like, that people love the fact they do love Winooski, and it's nice to hear that it's looked upon wonderfully in the legislator, is to be even more interested in the fact that we are absolutely the most unique school district in our state. And the things that are impacting our school district aren't represented when we do standardized testing. It doesn't show the growth and the learning that is happening. And so when you have a school district that is double the rate of poverty than any other town in Vermont, and also 40% New American, as well as we have the transition piece going on, there's some details behind that that people kind of overlook when we try to put everything into one standardized test to decide whether we're a failing school or not failing school, or a great school or not a great school. And I think also that sort of ties into the fact, ties into the point of early education, is why it's so imperative in a way to get our kids in earlier so that we can make sure that we're finding some common ground among our community of who we are together, how we're learning together, how we build relationships, and how we play together, interact together, so that we can give kids a better start to school. Because there are some amazing things going on here, but we are dealing with something that nobody else in the state is, not even Burlington, because they do have a healthy middle class and a healthy upper class. And I think that until it's really articulated well, we get mixed in with Chittenden County. And we're very, very different from Chittenden County. And so when our governor speaks to the fact that Chittenden County's fine, we need to think about other things. We need to make sure we're articulating it well about who we are and how we're meeting our kids and what that means to meet our kids where they are, so that people are more clear about that.
Well, I'm the chair of the Community High School School Board, which is the high school of the correction system. And one of the things I've been after, even back when I was on the education committee years ago, was I want to know where the students of that school came from. And we now know where they come from. And interestingly, they don't come from Winooski. Because we now know the last high school that any student who's in the correction system high school comes from. There are a couple from Winooski, but in the numbers are not Winooski at all. The numbers are, I won't say what they are, but they're from interesting institutions, high schools in this state. And so Winooski's doing a good job on a lot of different fronts, and that's just one more measure to take a look at. But I would encourage Sean and the administrators and teachers in Winooski to, and the board as far as that's concerned, to come to Montpelier at as many times as you can and bring as many diverse students as you can to make, if you got a group of students that did something that was thought to be exceptional, contact the education committee.
To me, that's a staged event. I would like
Yeah.
to have somebody come here.
Well,
to
you
see
can,
it-
well, you
to
can
see
also,
it
I would
re-
invite
live.
the new commissioner here, or new secretary here too.
Already
But-
been done.
And it's because it seems to be very interested in the kinds of issues that you have. So that you make sure she gets here. And I will be meeting with her next week on community high school, and I'll mention again to her.
She's actually coming in June,
gotta
and she's
stay,
going to be
yeah.
a keynote speaker at our School Development Institute
Okay.
for the high school teachers.
Is that when the kids are in session?
No.
Yeah.
And I did invite her, Jeannie Collins and I kind of co-invited her to come and spend, a half a day or a
Right.
day and see Burlington and Winooski in the spring, but we haven't been able to get it scheduled yet.
I'll try to get the governor to come with her if you're able to. And if, we
Yeah.
might be able to, if you get something going, let one of us know and
Okay.
we'll work on the governor's staff.
there's gotta be a day between now and May
Yeah,
that
should
that
be.
works
Right,
for
right.
both of them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we will,
Yeah, the
but
collaboration
I-
with Burlington Winooski is amazing right now,
It is
so
amazing, yeah.
it'd be awesome for people to really see that.
all right. Anything else? I hate to cut short because the discussion is rich and I think we need to have it. But also have another slate of agenda that we will probably have to push some items into March, but
Don't
it's worth
hesitate
it.
to call.
Thank you
Or drop
All
us an
right.
email.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Yes.
And I'll tell you my computer story when I used to sit across the hall and one day this is back when, all I ever did was word process and occasionally a spreadsheet on the computer. The computer froze up and Louis was here, Louis Provo, I came over and said to Louis, I said, it's all frozen up. He said, don't worry about it, come here. Got a little 6th grade girl, okay, he says, I don't know what her name is, he says, go in and help Mr. Cross. So she goes in and I said, look, it's frozen up and I don't know what to do. She says, don't worry about it. I said, I don't want to lose all that stuff. She said, no sweat. Bingo, it's all set.
While the kids were making their presentation tonight, I'm saying, boy, we had to bring them down to Mount Pelion to help us.
They're
for a few
amazing.
weeks.
Yeah, that was great. How's glad you got to see that. That was awesome.
It's awesome the way the technology world is being
All right,
led by.
again,
Good
greatly
night.
appreciate
Thank
your,
you.
your
Thanks, Chief.
help
Thank you for all your
and
hard work.
we will be in touch.
Okay.
Appreciate it. All right, so now as we go down through the agenda here, we'll see where we go. If we get too jammed up, we got some things we have to get done. We'll see if we, need to move others. But I think the first reading in B, the, policy on drug and alcohol testing, transportation, this is for the transportation of employees or for employees that do transportation, Sean?
Employees who do transportation.
Okay. And so this is, set in 4B. That's it? They're just the
This
4
is the model
lines?
policy from the VSBA.
So this is
It's
mandated.
very simple. A lot of it is grounded in the legal references there in the US codes. And I went and did the research on all of those and they're still up to date and relevant. So really it's just a matter of kind of personalizing this into our Winooski policy process.
It's required to have this type of policy in our base mandated
It
policy
is a
groups.
required policy. It's the only one that we didn't have on the books
Okay,
when we did the audit earlier this year.
all right. Any discussion? It's just short, sweet.
Are you going to attach, I mean, this says, procedures, the superintendent or his designee will implement procedure, will you attach those to the
Yep.
policy?
Yep.
Okay. Will you do that, will you
I
develop
will-
procedures?
I will develop procedures. I will not have the procedures next month. So when this comes for approval, the board would just be approving the policy and then the procedures would be developed after that.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Okay, accept the motion to accept the first reading of, we don't have a number on this, right?
So moved.
Policy to drug and alcohol testing. Second,
Second.
any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. D, the boundary study. Read with interest the difference in the tone, direction, data was all still there, so I was much happier, much more pleased with the way this was laid out. Just other thoughts?
I just had one thing that I would like to see added or changed or edited. In the very last part of this, it talks about the questions.
Can you give a page number, Jay?
Page 11 of 11. It just talks about working with or merging with another supervisory district, or excuse me, number 2, are there possibilities for improvement through cooperation or collaboration with a neighboring school system? And I'd like that to say school systems, because I
With-
thought we were fairly clear in the committee that,
Wait, you're on page 11?
page
Yeah.
11,
Number 2, right down at the
number
bottom.
2, I
paragraph.
thought we were pretty
What-
clear.
What
Clearing.
operational areas have opportunities for increased efficiency?
Right. Right, and cooperation or collaboration with another neighboring school system, and I would just like that to be school systems.
With neighboring school systems.
Right, because I thought we were pretty clear in the committee that moving forward, we would look at multiple.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it leaves it more flexible by
Yeah.
It
making
leaves
it
it more
plural.
flexible,
Yeah.
and
Great.
competition is always good for the consumer, which are our kids. So,
Right.
that was
Okay.
my only thing.
Okay.
I'd like to see that edited, and then I would make a motion to approve the boundary study
With the one
with the
adjustment.
one adjustment.
Second. Any other discussion?
That's awesome.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I greatly appreciate the work that you guys did with John to get this thing to this point, so it is not trivial. So
No, he did a great job. It's really
Definitely
nice to have
appreciate it.
all this data consolidated into one place.
Yeah.
It's a really great read.
It is.
And
Yeah.
we'll have,
It's really important.
in a relatively near future, a view of some step 2 or phase 2 or
Yeah.
some kind of steps forward, path forward, which would be good. All right. I think I would like to table the discussion on the strengths-based leadership book, though I would like to have folks read the
I was just gonna say,
intro,
can we at least get the,
and before next time, if we could take the,
I would say the first 2 chapters, I've already
Yeah.
gone
Yeah.
past it, and it's pretty easy read,
Yeah.
so
It's
I
a
don't
really
see why.
easy
Yeah.
read, and it's a great
So
book.
why
Yeah.
we don't put a little emphasis on
Yeah.
reading up a few chapters.
yeah, so we'll get
Okay.
into,
It's like
is
a
it
book
the
club.
strength?
I
Is
really
the-
like the book.
Is the, well, it's worthy,
Myself.
it's
It is. I'm
worthy of
excited.
it's worthy of a 10-minute discussion each month. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about that.
So what chapter are we reading to?
One-
I would say
We'll
go
go-
What's my homework?
I finished the book.
We knew that. We knew that.
So
Yeah.
I'm at your
Yeah.
disposal, but
You can just
whatever.
read it. You can be the guy who's sitting there
I
like the
said
headphones
Jay's
on.
gonna have it
listening.
read by the next meeting.
Okay, so we'll go 4 chapters in. Where is the
4, okay.
actual survey done?
Yeah.
Anywhere in the beginning, in the middle, end? Where would the,
It's towards the end, and the end is really the spot where you need to slow down in the book and say, because it's fun, because I'm seeing all of us in the final, that when he starts to break down the
The
different
themes.
and the different strengths and who has what. It's very exciting to see that we're a
That's
very
what I'm excited
diverse
about.
board here, and I see gifts in all of us.
and as you move forward, when you get a new board member, you would be able to do the same thing. Here's your first assignment. Congratulations, welcome
Take the
aboard. Here's your
survey.
here's your book. Go read. and
Here's
do the
policy
survey.
governance,
But
here's list of
it puts them a new perspective into the group and somebody else to look for. So, first 4 chapters, and we can have a brief discussion at the next time. So we'll.
Couldn't we even do an email discussion? I mean, if we don't have time in a meeting to work on it, I don't see why we can't start a document on Google Drive and do an open-ended conversation where we check in once a week even and do like a question or whatever. I mean,
Are there open meeting
not
law
mean-
questions?
You gotta be
that's
careful about
the
open
one I was
meeting
worried
laws,
about.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, but is it an open meeting or is it just a book discussion?
Well, it
So
depends.
that's-
It's the fact it's all 5 of us.
You
If
know?
I think the line can be judged by someone else, so
Yeah.
I think we would want to keep the
You
discussion.
can do it on
to
Front
say
Porch
here.
Forum. Just kidding.
I think if you did if you weren't necessarily having a discussion, but if you set up a Google Doc and people wrote, what struck them or impressions or questions that arose,
So that
then
we
you
have
could
a
use that
focus.
at the meeting.
So we have a focus rather than just.
Just a
Oh,
thinking.
So
Okay.
Tori wants to talk about this part, Jay
Right.
wants to talk about this part.
So it's not a back and
Just-
forth on a Google
You're
Doc,
right.
it's just a kind of a
Don't
listing.
dialogue with each other.
Right.
Avoid that like the plague. But if you're
Communicate, just a push in.
just a push in of communication.
Okay.
Okay.
If you see, when you go into a Google Doc, you see the squares at the top. If you see more than 2, then
Get
wait.
out.
Okay.
Don't go to the quorum in the Google Doc squares.
Doing parallel play.
Yeah, right. Wait until someone leaves.
Don't get in the sandbox.
Okay, and
Someone else
that would at least give us,
12 and 3, so everyone's
okay,
together.
and that would give us discussion topics,
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
so, for the next time. All right, do you want to set something up and let us know where it is? Is that something you can,
Sure,
okay, that would be great.
Scotty can do that, no problem.
LaDonia, are you interested in
I'm
that?
gonna write it down there, cause
I can read it.
I mean, you've got enough
Yeah.
homework
Why
going
not?
on, but it'd just
Oh,
be interesting to
man.
have.
Sophomore.
Do we have another?
do you have the book?
No.
I'll get her book.
Oh, you should get her
Why
a
don't we
book
do
get a
that?
book.
if you're
Why don't we
interested.
do that?
Yeah.
And if you can, you
It'd be
can. and-
awesome
Yeah.
for you.
It is, yeah.
And then,
Especially
as you're
when
sitting there
you're-
watching the meetings, you can then categorize us each into some,
Yeah.
we can pigeonhole us into some spot, so.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, so I'm gonna start it, but Sean or Mike might have to go in and tailor it a little, cause I don't know how good I am about sharing things.
Here,
Okay,
we
we
can do
can
it, I can
see.
do it right here.
Okay,
We can just do a Google Doc.
Yeah.
all right,
do it
as long
right
as
now.
you're paying attention for the rest of it.
Yeah.
All right, so, moving along, section 5 here under executive limitations, a discussion topic of the superintendent monitoring report for this go-around. We have, whoops. On treatment of students, parents, guardians, and community. So in our original agreement, it was clarification on week 1, and then approval in month 1, and then approval in month 2. But any thoughts, clarification?
Very well done, Sean.
Thank you.
Does it get to the heart?
I think it does.
Do I? Okay.
The two things that I would, one thing just of note on the second page in evidence, under number 3, we only have one elevator, so I'll change that. It says elevators, that I discovered after another read. And then the other one is, I think that it would be good for us to talk about an instance like, top of page 2, under evidence where, my last bullet. So situations where something has come up that shows that the policy necessarily was not followed perfectly, but it was addressed. And how do we deal with situations like that in a report like this?
So in our policy governance, that came up before, and it would just, you would just put that down. You would write it just like that, right? And then,
It would be a
You would
partial
either be-
compliance, right?
right,
Well,
or
unless it's been
you're
taken
not
care
in
of.
compliance, but this is what's being done to be in compliance at
Right.
such and such a date.
But you would
Yeah.
still note that you would have been out of compliance for that instance.
Right.
But if,
It's
in
not
my-
a bad, it's an easy format. We should have it
Right.
in our,
Yeah.
under policy. It
Yep.
should be there.
Yeah, and I think, if it's something that was out, but is now back in with actions that have taken place, then I would say it is in compliance now. We had an issue, found out what it was, did a root cause, fixed it, and now we say we're in compliance.
Yeah, which is
Well,
different than,
no, that's
let's say that we
different.
did not have,
But you're still
proper-
documenting a partial
Right.
compliance because
Yeah.
it's over the period of, we're just getting into this, but it's over the period of the last year.
Right,
is
and
the
then
way
you'd
I
be in
understood it.
compliance. It's, if you haven't gotten it fixed, and I'm gonna go back to, what's her name? Drawing a blank.
Val?
Yeah.
Val.
No.
Her example was of their roof. Their roof was in need of repair. And so when they came up to that instance, they had a plan of what they were doing. They were not in compliance, but the plan was set forth to do it. If you already are in compliance, then yeah, you say what might have happened, but you would still be in compliance if it is fixed. If it's not fixed, then it's what you're going to do to make sure
Right.
you're in compliance,
Right.
even though you're not in compliance.
So
Right.
what I hear you saying then is, would a plan like that in that example be considered partial compliance or in compliance?
Is it fixed? It would be a matter of if
If
it's
the
fixed.
roof isn't fixed yet, but there's a plan to fix it.
It would
It's so
be-
you'd be out of
You'd be
compliance.
out of
Okay.
compliance, but
there's a
it's.
plan.
With a
right,
plan.
there's
With
a
but
plan.
you have a plan of how this is, and because a roof could take 4 years before we have
Yeah.
you have the money to fix
Right,
it.
right.
So that's what you would explain, and you'd be out of compliance. That's it.
Right.
Nothing
yeah.
major.
And out of compliance, I think Val kept hammering the point home, is out of compliance is not necessarily a bad thing. If
Right.
you've got a
It
plan
just
to fix
means
it and
It's
you've
an
done something.
identification, it's an
Exactly.
indicator of things that
Exactly.
you need to
Yep.
remedy. Okay.
Yeah.
That it stays that way without a plan to fix
So
it
maybe
is a
we need
problem.
to change the wording of compliance.
That's where the problem is.
So in this instance, where there was, a singular incident, so forth, that was remedied, what would the language be?
If it was remedied, then you're in compliance.
Okay. Okay.
As long as the evidence suggests that the action plan has been taken care
Yeah.
of to
Okay.
do what
Okay.
needs to be
That's
done to
helpful.
bring it back.
But is
Right.
that, no, if it's a means necessarily, it's something that if it's not, I mean, there's only certain things that we even have to know about. If it's costing the taxpayers money,
Right.
if it's going against the policy, things like that nature. So if you
Right.
see an issue, you fix it, you're in compliance, and I don't even know if it needs to come before the board, does it?
My biggest thing in all of these is the disclosure of saying, this happened, we got it fixed.
Yeah,
Because we've had that problem in the past.
yeah, and we're in compliance,
Refreshingly, that's not the problem now, so.
right?
Okay, good, that's helpful. And I think that's why it's good to have the 2-month cycle too, because then we can do this and we can kind of test those things out as we go and get on the same page.
Yep. All right. Anything else? We will take that one up as an approval in the cycle next time around. Item 6, the superintendent evaluation and expectations brought back the, interestingly, Sean and I had a discussion about evaluation and what would be, the form note didn't get
Oh, it didn't
pulled
get out.
in here, I don't
I was gonna
think-
say, I don't
didn't see it.
see
The-
anything.
Sean sent me a form for superintendent evaluation, it's one we used 2 years ago. So it is, it's the same exact form that we use, so.
Okay, with modifications
It is the raw form that we used originally.
from our policy governance that we designed?
No,
Or-
this was like 2 years ago when we did the evaluation.
Okay,
So the form, I think that's pretty much the same one that we would be using moving forward. The questions I've got for you guys is, from an evaluation standpoint, being in the middle of year 1, do we have an evaluation that there is to do at this point?
well, I was just gonna say, our evaluation should clearly be formed through the policy governance, and if we have not gotten
Yes.
to that point, then we cannot do a formal evaluation.
Right.
Because our superintendent is going by our policy governance.
Right. And I
So
think
until we come up with
Well,
something that
to this
oversees
point,
that.
The evaluation of the superintendent needs to be exclusively on policy
Mm-hmm.
governance. And the policy is very clear, we've spoken to it, and it says the superintendent shall be judged solely, correct me if I'm wrong, but on accomplishment of ends, which we've just created, so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of we're gonna,
And we could
that's
do
kind
it.
of a thing, we're gonna have to see what happens. But, and then there's avoidance of executive limitations. And I think, we can make judgments on all of those, and it's fairly easy to gather data one way or the other on, especially on executive limitations.
And,
'Cause that's more of the law, you're either following it or you're not.
I think too, we should talk to Val about that,
I can take
because
that.
Val will definitely know all the,
I think we
Ins and outs
definitely
of
need
that.
to do one, especially since it may have to do with negotiations
which is why we
as
should
well.
talk to Val about it, because she'll know exactly how to go about
Yep.
forming one and
I
coming
can-
up with one.
I can take that one to talk to Val.
She likes coming here. She said she would come back anytime.
Would you like me to send the old one out to everybody?
No, I don't think that's necessary, because moving forward with policy governance, that would just confuse Julian, because
Yeah.
he doesn't know anything about it.
Right,
So I give him information that's obsolete at this point.
and the policy's clear
Mm-hmm.
on what it is, and I think that's probably what Val's gonna tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I keep hearing her words, the first thing you should think about as a board when you come up on something is, have
Have
we
we
spoken to this in policy?
Right.
And yes, we have.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay.
So, No, I'm glad you didn't attach
Yep.
it, Sean.
All right.
Okay. So I'll reach out to Val, I'll get something back
Some
and
guidance of how to go about it.
see where we go. I did like at least the format that we did use the last time, and everybody giving their own input, and then someone consolidating that input to try to put one piece together.
But you need
I
the
think
form that
worked out.
complies with our policy
Yep,
governance.
yep, agreed.
Which would look completely different as far as questions, evaluation.
Mhm.
I know what you're saying, like compiling it is good,
Yeah.
but it
Okay.
would not be the same.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Good.
And I don't like those anyways.
Community engagement had a couple of items on here. The any recent community activities?
What happened with the senior center?
What's that?
Did,
I went and presented at the senior center.
you did?
How'd it go?
How'd it go?
It went well. There was audience was about 50.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Impressive.
it was nice. I got to go before lunch started and visit with people and meet folks, and then set up and did PowerPoint and had some questions, and it lasted the whole probably 25-30 minutes.
And favorable reaction to the bottom line? Bit of
There was
concern?
not a lot of talk about the bottom line.
Uh-huh.
There was more questions about parent involvement in the school was a big topic, about students with disabilities and new Americans and how we're, because in the presentation, I used some of the slides that we did in the budget process around our rising ELL population, our rising moderate to severe student with disability population. So, yeah.
So has anyone formulated, Jean keeps putting on the Front Porch Forum about putting out the formula for your each individual tax rate based on the homestead? Has that been done yet?
Mike put it in
Is that
tonight.
what I put out this morning?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
It's
last
in
night?
tonight's post.
and Front
In
Porch
Front
Forum?
Porch Forum,
Okay.
yeah.
So, and are you presenting that also with when you give the information meetings? Okay.
Mhm.
Yep, and I didn't have that slide at the senior center, so that's been
Right, I
slotted
think we
into the deck for next
definitely-
week.
Okay.
Well, it's great they were curious about pieces and parts of what's
Mhm.
going on in the school.
Yep.
Parents and students, yeah.
Yep.
It's neat.
There was a woman there who's, and I can't remember the name, but her husband used to be superintendent here many, many years ago. And then there were a couple of grandparents that had kids who came up and talked to me about their kids and
Nice.
their parent, their teachers, and it's great.
Associate?
Yes.
My neighbor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
He was superintendent
very
when I was
cool.
in 8th grade.
Does that make you feel old?
Not
Just
me,
curious.
but probably him.
That's wonderful.
And Jim Reed, who was here during the budget
Yeah.
Yeah.
process, he was there and he
Oh, good.
welcomed me, and
Great.
so it was a great connection to have.
I think the outreach into the different parts of the community was
It's
something we
being
gotta
seen.
definitely continue to do. So,
I talked to.
And go ahead.
Well, I was just, I talked to, I think, believe her name was Cindy, she's been on the board, Cindy,
Robert?
yeah, right, I saw her at the jazz,
Yeah.
concert, and she
Oh,
was of the opinion that we needed to get into spaces other than the community dinner, because she thought that the
Yes.
people were most,
She told me that too.
most sort of opposed.
This will help that.
Yeah, and so I mentioned the senior center, and she thought that was a great idea, but, I didn't really know where else to go, she didn't have any other ideas either, she just said,
Yeah,
"You
she's
gotta-"
talked to me about that also.
You mean like hosting the dinner somewhere else?
Well, a lot of our community right now is saying no to our budget.
Right.
And so she knows a lot of the community. And what
Yeah.
she's saying is there's a lot of people that are not going to go to the community dinner,
Yeah.
and will vote no based on that. So this is going to be key in that. And that's what I told her, that there was going to be a newsletter going out to the public. So this is
going
going to
out
be
tomorrow.
the key that will help people actually get it, see it, and that's what I had told her. So hopefully that reaches the community on that level. And
Yeah, this is really well done.
because clearly we're not going to be able to go individually home to home, or
Right.
You can do big segments. You can do the Channel 17 and the community
Right.
dinner and the senior home, but
One of the-
people that don't go to those things or aren't part of those communities won't have that benefit,
Right.
so.
One of the challenges and one of the slow pieces, if you will, of getting information out is keeping it to a small enough chunk in each message that doesn't get to be 17 paragraphs, take an hour and a half to read, to have somebody either not read it or only take small pieces of it out. So that's what I've been wrestling with,
Front
trying
porch
to get.
forum is brutal.
It
I'm
is. Well,
sorry.
it's a
I
tough
read that
forum
and I'm
to.
just
It's a tough forum to get the right
flabbergasted.
message out to, but
It is, but it is it's democracy.
It is.
People can,
It's at its
you know,
best,
be able
actually.
be able
Yep.
to be angry and
Yep.
positive and snarky and.
yeah. So
Also
we
to have
continue to
that
push
communication
having
is good.
folks come to the community dinner, because I think that face-to-face interaction and hearing the questions to the answers and the answers to the questions and more questions off the answers is key to understanding a little more deeply on what's going on.
And I
So-
would encourage us to be a little bit more timely in the presenting the information. Not that it wasn't, but I think before it gets railroaded into a big outburst, that we be a little more proactive in putting out why it is the increase instead of waiting for people to put it out there.
Right.
And being more proactive in getting the message of the budget out
Yep.
instead of waiting until people are in an uproar over the budget. Because
Yeah.
then,
Frame
if
the
they never go
conversation.
online again, they're gonna have their mindset, you know?
Yep.
That's,
I know, even providing a link to the website where all the information was.
Yeah.
Would have been, thought about that.
so that's the only recommendation I have for that.
All right.
And that might be I think between the flyer and there's a color copy on the front and center on the website right now, and Mike's post tonight in Front Porch Forum, which lays out the criteria for determining the tax impact and what each criteria contributes to that. So it's very specific.
You might even want to post that once a week until the budget comes.
Yeah, I think those are kind of the two pieces that are really the messages.
And I say that only because, like myself, I don't always have time to read the Front Porch Forum.
Right.
So, and people may say
Okay.
they may just get online once a week at the library and go through. So I would say try to post it weekly.
I noticed that with the invitation to the jazz dinner, it was nice that it kept coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy was
Yep.
like, oh yeah, that's right, oh yeah, that's right.
Do we feel satisfied that the myths that were generated on the Front Porch Forum about the school budget were satisfactorily addressed?
We're gonna find out on budget.
Well, no, we still have 2 weeks, right? So
Yeah.
we still have time to push more messaging out. Again, if people are dead set, that's it. As long as the facts are on the table,
Right.
that's
I
the
think
thing
we'll have a
think we
good
need.
idea by the end of the week and next week how it's going. If people are actually reading the Front Porch Forum and seeing it, we'll get a kind of
Yeah,
an
and
idea.
I
this
give our
going out will
citizens
help.
a lot of credit.
I do too,
think-
absolutely.
I think they're gonna walk into the polls informed.
Yep.
Are they necessarily gonna be happy or wanting to vote yes or no? Who knows?
We need bodies in the door.
But yeah,
That's what
they're
we need.
gonna go in informed on what,
Exactly, and that's what you need.
and that's what you need.
And
So
people need to come out
So
and
I
vote.
guess the question, back to the same question, is do we feel that we've had enough information? It may go out again,
I would put
but is what we've sent out enough to get the message out?
yes.
Yeah, I think even,
Okay,
again,
so
a
just-
link to the website where all the
Okay,
documents
can
are
attach that
stored.
at the
Yeah, 'cause
bottom.
it has that,
Can attach that at the bottom.
yeah, cause it shows the whole PowerPoint and everything we went through,
Mhm.
yeah.
real quick, and I apologize, but speaking of the website, could our final report to the AOE be on the website
Yep.
as well?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Great.
Yep, we definitely want to do that.
And thank you for all the hard work, Sean, on
Yeah.
putting that all together.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, appreciate that. So, just a few minutes here on reflections on our joint board retreat with Burlington. I'm gonna start at the end and then I'll let you guys go to the beginning. I walked out of there feeling real good about what we've got here and where we're going with it and how we do what we do. So, that's not something I could say about in the past, but, so I'll open it up from that and let you guys go back into it. If it
I will say that was a meeting I was very glad I attended because that was one of the best knowledgeable retreats I've ever been to. And there was so much it was an amazing place to be with so many people in one room where education and, you know, educating our students was the priority, and everyone was pretty much on the same page of how it needs to be done, and forward thinking. The forward thinking in that room was clear as day, and that was so refreshing to see. So that's all I'll say. I could go on and on, but I won't.
Well,
As the new guy, my impression, having been able to talk to some Burlington board members, was just relief at how much sort of simpler our political process is in Winooski than theirs. I mean, they got a lot of stuff to manage over there. You know, the relationship with the city and all kinds of stuff.
Boys one, in case anybody's wondering.
All right.
thank you. Thank you.
That's great. But you know, just really pleased that we have such a productive relationship with our city. You know, and it's great, and which I think allows, you know, more sort of education focus rather than political calculations about, you know, how to respond and how to react and how to put together a strategy that's going to, you know, maintain the territory without losing another piece.
Mike O'Brien invited Sean and I to a breakfast because he got invited to a mayor's meeting, and one of the items was early childhood education. He wanted to get himself equipped with what we thought, but he thought enough of asking to get together and
Were you
do
able
that,
to go?
so. Oh yeah.
How was it?
Oh no, weren't able to go. It was a mayor's meeting for all 6 of them, or
Yeah.
many they got in the
How did
state.
We just gave him the position.
And he went and took the details with him, and
Good.
Yeah, I think on your comment too is noticing how policy governance really has put us in a pretty unique position to be able to be even more focused on our kids and on our relationship with our community.
Yeah.
And I noticed that also at the Nellie Mae Foundation retreat back in Portsmouth in November, and talking to the other schools who are doing what we're doing in terms of changing our high school, and listening to their governing structure and how complicated the committees are in some of those, like Maine, Portsmouth, Maine. It was just like, wow, because when things become more complicated, it just sort of bogs down the system. And it's interesting, when we had the conversation our last meeting, where we thought, well, how are things going? And I remember commenting on thinking, you know, it's simple. You know, it's a really clear process to say, how have we spoken to this? And here are our ends, and here's where we're going. And that simplicity is not necessarily not thorough.
Right.
That simplicity actually allows you to be actually more thorough about what the true meaning is and what we're actually doing together. And that really kind of stood out to me too there. But I think having our students at the center of the conversation, and our students presenting and having those conversations, the way it was facilitated so that we were really able to hear their voices and their experiences and what matters to them, that was very powerful.
Forward thinking.
Yeah. Forward thinking. It was good.
the one session about the physics teacher in Burlington with the proficiency-based class, and setting out at the beginning of each lesson, here are the things you're going to walk out of here knowing, and you're not walking out without a grade until you can prove that those things can be done. I thought that was extremely powerful to give me a view of where does proficiency-based learning actually go. What does it look like? You know, how do you tell? So
You know, hard science.
in a hard science, it's I would argue probably easier, because there are certain, you know, it's this.
I think our iLab is doing a fantastic job of doing just that. Like, yeah, we're not getting grades for the students in iLab, but they won't be finishing that without being proficient in whatever it is they're setting out to do. And it's driven by that student with the guidance of a teacher. And that's really what comes out. It is student driven. And that's really what was so impactful, is, you know, it's amazing. I just thought it was a great seminar.
Well, and I think as a board, you know, you should be really proud of, you know, this reflection sheet that was developed. And when you look at part 2 around, you know, the essential work of school boards, and you go down that list, that is how you have been spending your time.
Right.
Creating a vision, establishing policy parameters. You hired a superintendent, monitoring progress through the reporting, developing the budget with you know, the vision in mind, and engaging. that is how you're spending your time.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is focusing on how, I mean, we're here, we're 5. We went out and got 50 signatures, got on the ballot, got elected, we're here. But we represent everybody else in the community, right, the stakeholders. So it's, you know, how do you keep a focus on making sure, the wide variety of views on Front Porch Forum gives you an idea how tough a job that really is.
Yeah.
How you
Well, I
represent.
liked Val just pointing out there too that now that we're in policy governance and our work is the community, of inviting the community to our meetings and having our meetings more focused on community and what their expectations are and what they want from their school district. So I was fired up by that. It never even clicked before. Did it for you? I mean, I remember you were like, that's a really good idea. I mean, she just had, it was just refreshing to see that that is our work now. It's looking to see what is the best for our students in the community that they live in. And, so I'm amped and looking forward to all of the good things that we can do.
Because I'm looking at the agenda as we've got it laid out here and structured and thinking that some night that's not an issue. It's segueing into our next topic here
And
around
doing our
community
community
is.
dinners more like taking a month and doing a community dinner with a sport board meeting after if we have things to touch on even. So we could even do that more instead of having to do, work with wherever we work through for community dinners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Well, yeah, and especially if we have, I mean, the focus on learning stuff at the beginning of the meetings is a great way to connect.
So powerful, so amazing.
With, board policy, how it gets laid out in the classroom. I mean, that's something that as a
Dispel.
community member,
Yep.
I'd be really interested in seeing
Yep.
to connect. Because, some of this policy governance stuff from the community had nothing to do with somebody else. Hang me, I'm out of here.
Right.
But the focus on learning stuff is
Yeah.
always
Yep.
fantastic. So, the time that we do recruit for a community dinner, not this one because it's the budget one, but, an eventual one.
actually, there are going to have stuff at that community dinner from the students.
Oh, great.
Oh, there will
Okay.
be stuff, good.
Yeah, I believe the middle school's science rooms will be available for
Right.
looking at.
Excellent.
Cool.
Maybe
So-
some singers.
And that's key. But like even just George and Clem coming, that would have been a great, have them, some of the city council members, and maybe even like some of the Burlington city council members, and having a whole forum here of, okay, what do you feel we need to do to improve students' outcome at an upper, level, and just bring the community more involved, businesses,
Yeah, I think
inviting
that's
businesses in,
a key piece. Getting,
even we could even do a book night and bring children in and read to kids. I mean, that way you get parents involved, and
yeah.
it's just lots of cool things you can actually do.
Yeah, just to open up on one thought that you just mentioned, some business folks, and talking down through, I think we had specifically talked about the graduation expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And how do they fit into what, some of the business owners
looking for.
need, are looking for, but what does it mean to them?
What does it mean? What does
For
success?
creativity.
Yeah, our ends.
What
yeah.
is problem solving? How does that look? What are they looking for? And how do we show that that's what we've got?
Yep.
Right. So a lot of avenues can open up.
It does. It's exciting.
And so I think I'm thinking that we probably want to exercise one of those, I'll call it an odd agenda base in the next 4 or 5 months here.
Be wonderful.
Sometime as we get,
Why so far out?
there you go.
It's February.
All right.
How about
gosh.
April or May?
That's why it
It
takes
really
us
is
so
going
long
to
get things out.
it's going to require
Oh my gosh, we're
writing
falling.
up those questions that you just stated, sending it to all the business areas, and see who's interested in coming.
Yeah.
And,
Business round
and you
table,
pick a date.
School board business round.
Well, yeah, and there's resources in place, or there is the Vermont Business Roundtable. I call them when I want to get a group of leaders to come and talk to high school kids about leadership, and they say, okay, I got these 4 people. They have like a speakers bureau, so, and we've got the universities. I mean, we've got tons of resources right around us to get folks to come talk about the end, success, engagement in the global community.
I just wouldn't put it off too
Yeah.
much because, we are halfway through the school year, so actually more than halfway through. We don't want to put it on the back burner. We want to keep looking forward and keep moving forward. And
All right.
We have
That's
4
fair.
months. It's
Yeah.
like 4 more meetings. Fourth one's June. It's
I
crazy.
think those conversations bring definition to the ends and the graduate expectations with it, which then help all of us figure out, well, me figure out how to demonstrate that we've met them and what are the measures. And it brings a shared understanding of some of these lofty concepts like success.
Yeah, what does that mean to be
Especially moving into the PLP way of teaching next year. I mean, I just think this is all relative, so.
Yeah, that one we're gonna need a real clear focus into the parent community, because when the kid goes home and it doesn't look like it used to, it can't be viewed as it's failing. It's gotta be viewed as it's something different and heading in the right direction.
Yeah. And then also, there's something just, popping in my head about some of the Porch Forum was saying that, that our kids aren't learning, because we're using the kneecap is really the only standard, is how do we use some of these measures that we will be wanting to see in terms of us meeting our ends so that we can put out other information, a wider range until we, as a state and as a national country, like move away from these one-shot deals on one day. This tells us whether you're growing or not, or learning or not. Like, can we find things like that?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot
to
of them
put out
already.
there to
Yeah,
show
well,
our
I was just gonna
community.
say, so when you bring in people from different businesses, you do a focus of learning before we even start that, of some kids from the iLab coming in to show what they're doing and where they're going, and just the different aspects of individualized learning pieces, so that people do have the opportunity to see these students take it seriously. They have work they have to do. They are succeeding because they're doing what they want to do. What's really going to be interesting is 4 years down the road, seeing where these students are.
Yeah. And I
That's
think
really
that's
when you're going to know if it's working or not.
And I think that's a key component from your perspective, is looking on what did we do, and looking, having those kids reflect back on what they went
It's
through
so new.
and what it did for them as they move forward, and then we can taper what we do. So I think that's a huge piece of the input.
Change is hard, and it's a process.
So good discussion, Ben. We'll work on it in faster than 4 to 5 months. But as you can
Sorry,
tell with
Mike.
the Front Porch Forum postings, I want to have it right. I don't want to have it fast. But everybody's definition is a little bit different. I will take it to heart. The golden apple,
Steady as she goes.
as mentioned, it just takes so much work to redo it when you don't get it right, especially.
Sorry, Mike.
No. It's not criticism, it's constructive. I'm taking it that way, and it's not an issue. Golden apple, yeah, you brought it up the last time. It's a,
I mean, Sean said he had some thoughts, and I have some as well.
so how do we have that discussion? Do we have it in an open forum? Do we do it in a
Well, we can
emails
have,
back?
we can have
nominate?
a discussion here, or we've had board members submit names to the superintendent, and Sandy knows where to get them and how to get them engraved. It's a, it's
So
a
it's
trinket.
to a community member that has.
It would be a community member or somebody who has, generally not staff, because they're recognized a little bit differently, but somebody outside the organization who has done something of real benefit to the school. Generally, individual board members or a group of us, it doesn't matter, would nominate them, and they would go on the agenda, set it up so they show up, and we have a very short thing at the very beginning of the meeting, so they're not hanging out for 2 hours while we get to them and on an agenda item. We'll put them at the very beginning of the meeting, we recognize them, give them some congratulations, and they get a nice little brass apple.
Nice.
That's cool.
Do we have any criteria to go by for this person, or?
We have not in the past. It was actually suggested by Bruce Chapman, one of our former superintendents, as a way of generating some positive support in the community and recognizing people. And
I like the idea of keeping it a little open-ended and
That's
not
fine.
trying
I'm fine with
to
that. I just want to make sure
pinpoint.
I already have someone in mind. So, and then so we just send it to Sean, and
if that's the way you want,
Is this something that you would like to do monthly or quarterly?
I think it's yearly, isn't
or
it?
all at
No,
once?
it's
No more
it's
than quarterly, I
more
would
than
think.
yearly, but you shouldn't do it every month because then it cheapens it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would encourage board members, it's not for somebody that does one or two things. generally, it's somebody who's really slugged it out for a while. You know, again, not to set too much criteria to it, but it's a lot of people do things for the district. You want to really keep it to people who have gone the extra mile.
Okay. That's great.
Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
Everybody?
Yep, so we gather up names and just.
Yeah, I mean,
send
and you
them
don't
in
have to come up with the
discuss
name.
them.
Like I said, I have one or two people off the top of my head that, you know, have really not really been recognized at all in the school district and have done quite a bit. And Sean, you're getting the heartbeat as well. So if you want to come up with somebody first, that's fine. It's totally up to you guys. I don't care.
Well, why don't we build the list?
Okay.
We have the list, and then we can figure out the timing after that.
Okay.
And,
Right, so we'll just send them to you to
Yep,
keep them
send them to me.
with a quick blurb of
Why?
what it is and why. All right.
Okay.
Good. I like it because some of those people don't want this anyway.
Right.
They're just going to do the work and they're going to be here. And you
Absolutely.
need them. They're going to be there all the time anyway. So
Yep.
good to. All right. Next agenda. Anything specific? Any topics we haven't hit? Anything comes up? Wanted to spend only a minute or two on the board self-evaluation. I did not get them out the last time, but I'm seeing, is this something that is useful, or is it just putting a number down on the paper?
I think it's just putting a number down on
Okay.
paper.
Perfect.
I think
We'll
we're good on
take
those.
care of that.
I
will
think if
bring
we
it
were a bigger
back.
board.
I will bring it back every once in a while just to make sure we're
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
track. But if you guys
Right.
have a problem with the agenda, you know where to go. It's not hard to find.
It
us.
actually it'd probably more helpful to have it like as a list next to you, you know, in some
Yeah.
ways of
Yeah.
as it's happening versus like after the fact.
Reminder.
Right.
I don't
And
know.
if we were a bigger board, I think it would be more useful, but because we're such a small board, I don't think,
Perfect.
I think we all know if we're not paying attention or not.
It is easier to find, yes. Great discussion tonight, though, I appreciate that. So upcoming dates, I believe Monday
A lot of 'em.
is the Channel 17 budget.
That's
Whoops.
And
Skipped
the
over it.
time is 5:25 to 5:55. It's not on there, but that is what the time is.
Okay.
So it's live,
This
you
is
two going live?
Live
Sorry,
down at the
I'll be
O'Brien
working,
Center,
so-
Excellent.
moderated, but is this one
Is it
moderated?
the
No, we're
O'Brien
going
Center?
to Channel 17.
We
Yeah,
are
be at
going
the
to
Yeah.
get there, okay.
Yeah.
It's just you two, right?
Unless you want to come.
I don't know.
Well, that's me too, right?
That is on the 24th, I believe.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
the
different.
following Monday.
this is
You
the
got the
budget one.
questions. Yeah, this is the budget one.
Starting to freak
Is
out
anyone
over
even
here.
running against you?
I don't think
No.
there's anybody, right?
No.
Are you guys both
Both
unopposed?
unopposed.
Unopposed?
Everybody
City
running for
council,
city
too?
council
Same
and school
thing.
board is
Yeah,
unopposed.
so we can spend our time getting people out to vote,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Nice.
a wiser use of time.
Yeah.
So I don't mind passing out pamphlets for the budget and stuff the weekend before voting if we want to put something together. I could take care of our end.
The same kind of one pager, little
Like
door
you
hanging
would,
thing.
yeah. Because we usually in the past have done it with people that are running.
Yeah.
And they've also attached it with it or whatever,
Okay.
supporting the budget. So if you guys aren't going to be doing little flyers, then maybe we should just do a budget
Okay,
piece.
can certainly do that.
This is going out to all the households too,
That's
right?
going out tomorrow.
Okay.
So what we can do is a smaller version, I don't know, just a one.
I mean, it's, if you don't think it's necessary,
Yeah.
that's fine, but I'm just saying
What do you
I
think?
have
Is
no
it
problem
worth-
doing it.
Putting it together. So I'll keep poking it out on front
It's a way of
porch
getting
forum, but we're
voters
only
out.
getting
Yeah,
The
that's
more the
helpful.
merrier. Yeah, I don't think we can do too much.
No, that's true. It's a big.
So.
All right, so I can work with Ann to try to, we can figure out how we format something into a small half-page
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
with the details.
Yeah, if you send to me what you want on it, I'll get it done for you.
All right, let's see.
It's great.
So-
Anything we need to do for the dinner?
That's what I was
Any
just gonna
decisions we need
ask.
to make?
Is that all being
Duties we
done?
need to pass around? It's here at the school.
Don't look
right?
at me.
I will be bringing registration forms to the dinner.
Okay.
For
Okay.
Voter registration.
Voter
Voter
registrations.
Yep.
great.
February 26th is the
Excellent.
deadline.
Ordering food, stuff,
That's
anything
all
that
it's
we
set,
need
right?
to. You need help? We need to do.
I
Who
may
was
be a
doing the
little
food?
late.
I can't make it.
Am I doing the food?
I
You
thought
can have it.
No, I don't remember.
I thought Sandy was taking care of it all.
I thought, actually, if we look back in the minutes, I thought you had said you were doing the, you were
Me?
gonna arrange the food.
No way.
Don't forget drinks.
Dessert.
It's really bad.
No
Dessert is
way.
optional.
Do I have
Drinks,
a cap on
just-
price?
What were-
I will do it if you.
Well, no, I don't,
I
I
can do
thought
it.
I remembered that, but
I
can
don't
look back.
remember that at all. I think you're just saying that, Sean.
Shanna, did you capture that?
that's why we have
You remember?
minutes.
Exactly.
Look at him, he's gonna go and look at the minutes. I must have been
Okay,
really
so-
super tired when that last meeting then.
I'll just do it. Just in the minute.
I can
Yeah,
arrange
so-
and have it set, but I don't know if I'll be here right at 5. So I can do it though. If need be. We're doing Papa Frank's, right?
I don't know. What are we doing for food?
What are we
Look,
doing
we're trying
for
to do.
food?
So, I always
Papa
like
Frank's?
to try to do something that's not bread and cheese all the time.
Oh, no,
It's who?
no, I just recognized, what I was thinking of was you were gonna do you did the February newsletter,
Right.
I did do the
Right.
February newsletter.
Yeah, I'm on for this.
and you
one.
offered to deliver pamphlets and flyers about that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know what I can do. So who did we say was doing the food, Sean?
I don't think
You
There
and
is
Sandy,
nothing
right?
in minutes about the food.
Community dinner, no dinner.
I would be happy to do that on behalf of the board.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
You do-
So
What
moved.
were you thinking for food if you don't want
I don't
know,
cheese
you
and
know,
pasta?
Tony Thai has always been a great one, or any of the Asian.
So we did last
Just
time,
something
right?
different, you
It
know.
was good.
I feel
Can
like
somebody give me an estimate of people for this?
I
It's
came,
not an RSVP.
I came up with 125 last time. I don't know how I pulled that one out, but how
That
many
was
can
pretty
we
You
much
did-
spot on. The food
You were
was
No
spot
idea,
on.
yeah.
No, it was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Had a lot of white rice
Yeah.
left, but not much of anything else.
right. A lot of dressings. That was it.
I wouldn't
And
even
I'm
know
fine
how
with
to
bread and
guess.
cheese,
So
too.
I
we're
would
gonna be
I would
attempting
recommend
something
we
big.
use
Yeah, how
ask
many
a
people can we
business
have?
that hasn't sponsored a community dinner before,
Yeah,
like
like Fodang hasn't
yes,
done it.
because
Fodang.
they have
or-
children in the
Food,
school.
dang.
They
Great
may want to.
idea.
Sweet.
Whatever,
Yeah.
yep. For the community dinner.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. I came up with the idea.
So Sean, you got that part? You're doing the food, right, Sean?
Got it.
So,
Fodang.
how many people?
125. It's a
Just
good number.
125, yeah.
How
As
many
good as it
how many
gets,
people
huh?
fit in the
There's
cafeteria?
a cafeteria. with
Remember,
a
there's
couple hundred.
it's the
Oh, yeah,
last.
Cafeteria will hold more than
It
are gonna
is
show
the
up.
last-
I'm thinking 200.
I
200
want to
people?
remember,
I would
Jay.
think.
It's the last boys' home game and senior night, so you may have extra people that
Right.
normally wouldn't go.
And it's
And what
gotta
time's
be
game?
done,
7 is the varsity.
it's gotta be
and
done by
6
6:50.
Yeah, we have to. I have
Clean
to
up,
be at the game.
clear
I have
out.
to be at the.
Me too.
Perfect. That'd be so fun. to
Senior
go
night
there.
with Andy in there, I got no choice
Yeah,
either.
no,
so
no,
I
that's
gotta
What
pull
time
the
are we
plug.
starting this dinner?
5.
5. Perfect. So
we
we
moved
have
it from
time to do that.
5:30
Okay.
to 5 to try to give more time.
Okay. Well, why don't you do 200 then? Since it'll
That's
be,
what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is
I think-
next
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Does the school district have a Costco
So,
thing to
what
go to,
we'll
like,
do-
for drinks?
What's that?
For drinks? Do we have a? Cause I don't go to Costco, but that would seem like the most relevant place
Yeah,
to get.
we'll get it figured out.
Okay.
Do we have any leftovers? You can have them push them at the concession stand.
We
Buck and a-
can.
buck and
Well,
a quarter
you know,
pop.
being a parent.
It's all fundraisers, it's all
Things
coming
and
back.
raised fundraising stuff. You can go to the grocery stores for waters and stuff.
Yeah.
They always are willing to donate. Costco donates all the time. So
We had talked about whether there was a school group that needed a fundraiser for desserts, like to have a bake sale.
you know, you should check with the junior prom committee.
They're charging
Uh,
this year too.
Yeah,
Junior
is it
prom is.
Kelly Fitzgerald?
Yeah.
Or
Fitzpatrick.
Is she
Fitzpatrick.
doing it?
Yeah,
I would
they're
check
really,
with her.
they're putting in some
I'll
effort.
email her right now. 'Cause
Or
if I go
student
home, it'll
council.
never happen.
Or
try to
softball, baseball's
Kelly
going to be coming up
Fitzgerald.
shortly.
Okay.
The other piece then under upcoming dates, March 3rd, the night before, the polls open, if we can all be there. That's, city first, that's, Monday night, It's city first and then, school for the budget. Hopefully at that point, a lot of people have already seen it, cause that would, good to get it get it out into the community early.
That's Monday night, right?
That'd be Monday night, yeah, and then the
What
fourth.
time?
What's that?
What time's that?
I think it's at 6 and 7,
Believe
isn't it?
this, yeah, I thought it was 6 for the city,
7 for the school, it's usually it.
6:40. Oh, you got it here. 6 for the city and 7:30 for the school.
Oh.
So I've got a family member doing a city one, I probably ought to be there early too. And then our regularly scheduled March meeting on the 12th.
Okay.
Anything else? We have executive session with a couple of items, so I would, if there's nothing else, I would accept a motion to move into executive session.
So moved. Second.
Any other discussion before we move? All those in favor of moving into executive session?
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive session.